right. So what's going to be addressed in this chapter? Well, in this chapter and in the next one, Keener's going to argue that the reigning paradigm of anti-supernaturalism is only a presupposition, one that need not coercively shape our interpretation of miracle reports in later chapters. After noting that 18th century philosopher David Hume's opposition to affirming miracles was not the only Enlightenment empiricist approach, he'll argue that, which may be mind-blowing in and of itself, because Hume seems to be a staple that people keep going back to, and might have been the only game in town. The Enlightenment was pure on skepticism, and it paved the way. I was just watching a debate between Michael Jones and Lawrence Krauss, where Lawrence Krauss was attributing all development during the Enlightenment to humanism, and saying that anytime that anyone did anything during the Enlightenment, it was not in spite of their Christianity. It was only going to the secular humanism approach to it. So he was gobbling up all scientific advancement from the Enlightenment, because he just viewed all of it as a secular humanist
as apples.
Yeah, exactly. No matter if people said no, I'm doing this in the name of the orange.
Yeah.
So it was quite impressive. Well, impressive in that it wasn't so impressive, especially for Krauss. But that's a digress there. So one, to succeed logically in his approach, it must presuppose atheism or deism. So Hume must presuppose atheism or deism. That is, it is not a neutral argument. Of course, we as presuppositionalists know that there can be no such thing as a neutral argument, but Hume seems to want to kind of present that case here. And in its conclusion does not inevitably follow unless one can establish this unspoken premise. So again, we're wanting to take an internal critique of Hume's approach, and so we're going to want to hit from the basis, and then if we can topple the foundation, then everything else will come a tumbling down.
Right. So these are the various, I think he lists 5 here issues that he's going to raise with Hume. This first one is this idea of, it's a presupposition. It's not a neutral argument. Secondly, Hume defines away miracles, he tells us, based on a deterministic reading of natural law. And he says that this approach was hardly inevitable, as may be recognized from its contrast with the approach of most of the folks in the early Enlightenment who were scientists. So Hume really is going against the grain here, because most of the people didn't hold the type of, deterministic reading of natural law that Hume had. Thirdly, and more problematic, he tells us, many critics today point out that the metaphysical assumptions informing Hume's argument here do not work in light of modern physics. And so he's kind of expand on that as well. Yeah. And then fourthly, and most important, he says, contrary to Hume's claim to be reasoning inductively, Hume works in a deductive, notice, circle, as scholars often noted. So he's going to suggest that, some of Hume's arguments are circular, quite frankly. He says that Hume argues based on experience that miracles do not happen, yet dismisses credible eyewitnesses' testimonies for miracles, that is, other people's experience, on his assumption that miracles do not happen. Well, that's clearly circular, right? Based on experience, miracles don't happen. Well, what about their experience? Well, yeah, but that means that they don't happen because it's based on experience. Well, you can have it both ways there. Finally, he says he's going to suggest that today the testimony of evidence from miracles is overwhelming compared with what was available to Hume in his day. And so those are the kind of the 5 major areas that he wants to go after Hume regarding his particular position.
Right. We're holding either digitally or physically two volumes to attest to that. Well, in contrast to some elements of this book, this chapter is not a positive argument for miracles or even the existence of extra-normal phenomenon. It is rather intended to show why scholars are not entitled to simply dismiss the possibility of supernatural causation for some extra normal experiences. So they won't have a leg to stand on after this section of the book.